As per Ind AS 110, investors should have power and rights over the investee to exercise its control. So, based on the establishment of control, we are going to decide whether we are going to consolidate the financial statements of that entity or not. So, investor has power over the investee when it possesses the existing rights, and these existing rights are those that provide ability to direct the relevant activities of the investee. Relevant activities are those activities those significantly affect the investor's return. So, to judge it, we need to make an assessment regarding the power and rights. So, there may be two approaches. One is a straightforward approach where through the voting rights we determine that the investor has control over the investee, and this assessment is comes from the shareholding voting rights. In another scenario, it may be a complex and required other considerations also, and we need to consider other factors because the voting rights are not those rights that is providing ability to direct the relevant activities those are affecting the investee's return. For example, if the voting rights cannot significantly affect the investee's return, this may be in case where voting rights are just for the admin work only. So, investor with the current ability to direct the relevant activities has power even if those rights yet to be exercised. So, the existence of the rights is important, but exercise of those rights are not important. Even if the investor possesses the rights, but it has not yet exercised those rights, is giving the control authority to the investors. And evidence that investor has been directing relevant activities can help in determining about the power, although only having the evidence that investor has been directing the relevant activities is not sufficient and conclusive evidence, but it may be helpful in assessment whether the investor has the power and rights to control the activity, ability to investee, and it has the ability to direct the relevant activities. Apart from it, investor that holds only protective right does not control the investee, because protective rights are to just protect the investor's right. So when we are assessing the control mechanism to decide whether the investor has the authority, protective right we are not going to consider, and in this regard we will discuss in another slides. Apart from it, when we are judging the power and rights, in some circumstances it may be difficult to determine about the sufficiency of the rights that give power. So in this case, there may be scenario when one or more than one investor are controlling the activities. In this case, investor need to consider evidence who is having practical ability to direct the relevant activities unilaterally. And based on that, we are going to decide about the existence of power and rights. And these may be the indicators where without having contractual right, investor can appoint the KMP, it can direct investor to enter into any activity or can veto to any significant transaction that is for the benefit of the investors, and can dominate process of investors governing body, can and where the investees KMPs are related parties of the investors, and where the majority of the member of the investees governing body are related party of the investor. So these may be the indicators where without having contractual right, the investor has power and rights over the investee. There may be cases where the investor is having more than passive interest in the investee, and it may indicate the existence of sufficient power. For example, where the investee's key managerial persons are current or previous employee of the investor, and it has significant portion of investors activities, sorry, investees significant portion of activities are conducted on behalf of the investors, and investors exposure to the return from its involvement is disappropriate, higher than the voting rights. For example, it has voting rights of 40%, but from a particular activity through the contractual rights, and that is a significant activity, the investor has higher return. It may be 60% or 70% like this. Apart from it, if the investee's operations are dependent on the investors, so this is an indicator that it has more than passive interest, and dependency may be in form of if the investor is going to fund a significant portion of its operation, and investor guarantees significant portion of investee's obligations, or critical investee is dependent for critical services, technology, know-how, or raw material on the investor, or dependency to the critical licenses or trademark, those are required for the business purpose by the investee, and the KMP dependency may be in form of the KMP, those are having specialized knowledge of investee's operations. So these are different indications we need to assess at the time of judgment of power and rights of the investor.